Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live, another great Monday show for you today. And second hour, Dr. George Delgado will be here for an open forum, a pro-life open forum. If you've got questions that have to do with the beginnings of life, the ends of life, anything, any ethical issues having to do with medicine, he is the man for you. So you'll want to be here for that hour. This hour, well, Rose Sweet is here with us, and the author of many books, including Healing the Divorced Heart, a devotional, Rebuilding After Divorce. She created a very widely used DVD series called The Catholic's Divorce Survival Guide. Is it still called that?
No, that's the old name. The new name is Surviving Divorce.
Surviving Divorce.
It's shorter.
Rose, thanks for being with us today.
I love being here.
I'm still adjusting to the time change.
Yeah, so you were in Alabama.
I was in Alabama, and I had a great time in Alabama. I had the best biscuit I've ever eaten in my life in Alabama, and that's among other things. But for me, always the food is the primary.
Yeah. So it was real buttery and flaky. And
it was. I can't even. I don't even. It was just from Alabama, and it was.
You know,
really
last time we were talking about donuts. Now here we are on biscuits.
And we were talking about donuts.
And somebody brought us donuts.
And then Kathy Stone, who was listening in the car, brought us donuts. I was
Keep
very
talking.
happy. Yeah, Kathy, I love biscuits. But you probably can't get biscuits that good here. I don't know, here in California. Maybe somebody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the holidays and divorced families and how to survive the holidays. And if you are not a member of a divorced family, probably somebody you're going to see during these holidays has gone through that. And as a good Christian person, you're going to want to respond properly. And is it a minefield, or is it what would we? It's just a difficult thing to be divorced, both for husbands and wives and for children of divorce at the holiday time.
It's horrible because, you know what they say, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah.
And when your family has fallen apart, it's not the most wonderful time of the year. And so it's just a constant salt in the wound kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then parents and families who are going through this, then they try to desperately cling on to the holidays as a balm to the bleeding wound and try to, make it over the top this year, or make up for the divorce by buying the kids a million things, and it just gets crazy.
Yeah. 888-31-TRUTH is our number if you'd like to speak with Rose about that. 888-318-7884. Maybe a sibling has gone through divorce. Maybe you yourself have gone through divorce. Maybe you are the child of divorce. The thing about divorce is it's become such a commonplace now. Marriage is so much under assault, and so it's brutalized, really. Marriage is brutal, and people often end feeling brutalized by their experience in marriage, that none of us are likely exempt from this. I mean, it's of our family, our friends, even if we have not gone through it ourselves.
Right. We know somebody who's going through it, or maybe, and here's the sad thing. Attorneys will tell you that the greatest number of filings for divorce happen in January, right after the holidays. Because some people can't bear to file for divorce and ruin that for their families. So even after the holidays is bad. It is brutal.
Yeah. All right. So how about some tips from you? I mean, what are the things that we should be thinking about? Whether the family sometime earlier this year went through a divorce, or is a divorce is imminent in the family, about getting through the holiday season? Well,
okay, so we're going to address the people who are going through it, and then the people who love them and or work with them or live next door to them or whatever. Okay, so I remember, I'll never forget, I love Christmas. I go I go all over. And after divorce, I couldn't, it was the first year in my life I couldn't even buy a tree. I didn't want one decoration in my house. It wasn't like me, and people were going, "Oh, what's wrong with Rose? It's been months." And I just couldn't. I froze up in emotions, and I went into depression, and I pretty much slept through Christmas. And I was thanking God it was over the next day. The next year, I was back to normal. But I felt ashamed and guilty that I couldn't get into the holiday spirit, but I just kept praying, and I tried to draw close to our Lord, and I went to Mass. And I realized I just needed to give myself permission to do that year.
It does. It's striking that the period between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, I guess, it's this, like you said, most wonderful time of the year and all that. But it also it hits us as kind of a burden. Like you have to do that, and you don't really have to.
No, but here's the thing. If you want one biscuit and it tastes so good, then you automatically want 5 biscuits.
You know me well.
That's
Rose.
right. And so anyway, so Christmas is so wonderful and we love it. And it's so warm and loving and everything. Then we want to have it perfect and we want to extend it into September. And then we want to have 10 parties and we want to buy more gifts. I mean, we just, it's that addictive nature, that we're trying to fill that hole again. So divorce, as horrible as it is, can jolt you out of that sometimes and make you go, you know what, I need to prioritize my life and what this holiday is all about and pull way back and really enjoy it on a whole different level.
888-318-7884, our number. This is Catholic Answers Live. Today we're talking about divorce and families going through divorce or having been through divorce around the holidays. And it's not just for divorced people this hour, because most of us know somebody who's going through that, is in that situation, whether a neighbor, a friend, a family member. 888-318-7884 if you would like some advice on navigating that. So I'm a grandparent of divorce or something like that. What are the things that I need to be sensitive to?
Okay, that's a great question. You know what? Just babysit. Give mom or dad a night out to go buy presents or to just get out and have a glass of wine with their friends or whatever. Babysitting, taking the kids and having a good time with them, taking some of the burden off. Just listening and encouraging somebody. And maybe even telling your daughter or your son, you don't need to send out Christmas cards this year to those 300 people on your list. Or, I'll do it for you this year. You just look at what the person is, going through and what's stressing them out and see how you can help.
And what about the children themselves? What do they need it?
Oh, okay. Just in general, we know that kids need the stability of a loving family, and they've lost that in the divorce. So they're looking for security, and they're looking for rituals and routines is what gives kids safety. Go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, do the same things, helps them, especially in a time of trauma. So I always say to sit down and look at what you do for the holidays, and invite the kids into the conversation. Okay, kids, we're going to have to cut back this year. But what do you really like to do? Oh, let's get rid of going to grandma's. We don't know she makes us eat those horrible cookies. Okay, we're not going to go to grandma's this year, and you laugh about it or whatever. We're going to invite grandma over one night. So anyway, and have the discussion and say, kids, what do you love about Christmas? What do you love? And what do you want to keep? And if it's reasonable and within the budget, then do that. But make it everybody in the discussion so the kids feel like their whole world isn't really falling apart.
Yeah. What about the person who feels a sense of failure in some way? And maybe, this is a holiday, especially Christmas. Well, Thanksgiving is difficult because it's hard to be thankful when things have fallen apart. And maybe you go to the family event and maybe you're one of those families where everybody's got to say something they're grateful for this year. I'm grateful that I will now not have to say this for another year or something. I don't know, But the thing about Christmas then is it's all about Jesus, and maybe I feel like I let him down somehow.
Well, and maybe you did. And that's what the sacrament of confession is all about. Every case is different. And if you're not the person going through divorce, you're the family member or friend. Don't try to judge or give advice, especially at this time of year. Just because every situation is so unique. Just be present. There's the word, present. Just be present. Listen, love, and then let go of all that other stuff.
888-318-7884. We're talking divorce, family, and the holidays with Rose Sweet, who knows these things very, very well. This is your bailiwick.
It is my bailiwick.
Yeah.
I'll never forget one year my stepson opened 10 million presents. The family was trying to make up for his poor, lost childhood and divorce and everything. He got so many presents, it was obscene. And I'll never forget, when he was done with the last one, he seriously looked up and said, "Is that all?"
Oh, wow. What do you think that was about?
He was becoming entitled. He was now expecting all this extra attention and all this focus and all these gifts and all getting his way all the time.
Right.
And I went, whoa, this can't be good. This has to go back. So here's one tip. Baby Jesus got 3 presents.
Yeah, I know. As
Do
a
our
kid,
kids need more?
right. Are they more important than the Lord and Savior come among us?
Exactly.
Somehow right. I suppose there's a way in which, and maybe this is what you're saying, that we maybe overcompensate where we feel that where we've hurt the child or we've failed them in some way.
And we probably have failed or hurt the children, but that's not the issue for the holidays right now. It is, what do the kids need most? And they need me to contain my emotions the best I can, to not be, talking about this the whole time, and to be creating a low-key, stress-less, loving, fun time that's focused on Christ.
Your calls for Rose Sweet on marriage, divorce, family, and the holidays right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
We're glad you're with us. Stick around for more Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett from Catholic Answers Live, and as we head down the stretch toward the end of the year, Catholic Answers is kicking off the annual winter sale in their online shop with great discounts on all of the books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s we carry. With great new releases on church history, scripture, Bible prophecy, and the saints, the shop at Catholic.com is once again your go-to place for solid Catholic resources, with a store-wide discount in addition. Just enter the promo code WINTER at checkout in our newly redesigned shop, and you'll save 20% off your total purchase. That's right, 20% off hundreds of great Catholic books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s from now until the end of the year. That's shop.catholic.com.
Pope Francis said, "The key that opens the door to faith is prayer." Join St. Paul Street Evangelization by running a prayer station in the public square. You don't need to be a professional apologist or theologian. Just listen to the needs of the people you encounter. Offer encouragement, take prayer requests, and pray with people. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The Catholic Answers Minute. I'm Father Vincent Serpel. In Luke 17, Jesus said, "Things that cause sin will inevitably occur, but woe to the one through which they occur. It would be better for him if a millstone were put around his neck, and he be thrown into the sea, than for him to cause one of these little ones to sin." But he also said, "If your brother wrongs you 7 times a day and returns to you, saying, 'I'm sorry,' you should forgive him. If the one who has caused one of his little ones to sin says he's sorry, then the millstone will be set aside, and he'll be forgiven." God's love is greater than any evil. Often when a great sinner repents, he attains great holiness. St. Paul says, "Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more." We need grace to be faithful. We need grace even to want grace. I'm Father Vincent Serpa for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Rose Sweet is our guest this hour, and we're talking about kids' divorce and the holidays. Rose, you were saying to me something at the break that I would like to explore a little bit with you, and that has to do with splitting the day for kids between parents on Christmas.
I have been through this, and I learned something. Okay, so here's a typical Christmas day. You get up, you have breakfast, you open presents, you got Bing Crosby on the radio, whatever. It's all wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you look out the window, and there's the other parent honking the horn. It's noon, and now you got to bundle up Junior, and he wants to take this present, and no, you're fighting about this, and all of a sudden then he's gone, he's driving away, and so your Christmas day is just like, mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what a beautiful gift it would be, even though you have the court order that says you can pick them up at noon. What mm-hmm. a beautiful gift to say, you can have Christmas Eve, you can have all of Christmas Day and Christmas night, and I won't come to get the child or the children until the day after Christmas. Mm-hmm. And the next year, I will have those 2 or 3 days. it works way better. And I think a lot of parents at first resist it. No, because I have to have Christmas morning or I have to have Christmas Eve. And I was like, no, you don't.
Right.
Let the child be with the other side of the family and enjoy those grandparents and those relatives without this being torn in part like Solomon's baby. And there's how we put our religion into our relationships.
Yeah, really, it's sacrificing. It really is sacrificing for that parent, but it's for the child to let them have the
Exactly.
most stable, peaceful Christmas that they can have.
Exactly. And be generous to the other parent, not just for the child, but even though you can't stand the other parent, give them a gift. That's what Christmas is all about. Even though you don't feel like it,
Yeah.
give it. Be generous.
Right. So, would you advise in that family maybe, okay, so if the mom is going to have the children for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day under your scenario, maybe dad would get them for the Thanksgiving, the whole Thanksgiving or something like that.
Yeah,
Would-
yeah, you can work that out. But don't try to cram everybody in and split this whole thing in half. It's hard. It's really hard on the kids. Now, the kids will tell you, we like it because we get twice as many presents and more parties and everything, but they still get that. They get 2 weeks off for Christmas, so they still get all that stuff.
Right. 888-318-7884, our number. Rose Sweet, our guest. We're talking kids, the holidays, and divorce, and every single line's lit up. So shall we go to calls?
Let's go.
David in Houston, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. You are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Hello, this is David. I have more of a comment than I have a question.
Hi, David.
David, your comment.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, when I got divorced, naturally it was rough, and I didn't have any children at the time. And but what was very comforting to me was that I went to Mass on Christmas Day, and any difficulty that I had just moved away because I knew that's where I needed to be at that moment in time. You know, not feeling sorry because the marriage broke up and you know, and all that other pain that comes with it. When I went to morning Mass, I realized that's where I needed to be at that point in time, and that made all my troubles go away.
Rose?
That's beautiful, David. Yes, you know, you put your own pain to the side to put Jesus present to you and to worship him and to thank him for everything that's good. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And when you said that about one parent just allowing the other parent to have the kids for the whole Christmas Day, to allow those kids to have a settled, that you could, and as the parent who's kind of alone then, go to Mass, do those things that adults are able to do. Give yourself permission to have Christmas Day be more an adult Christmas for you.
Right, and the first time it might be difficult, but you'll get used to it. And the one thing is too, if you're going to go to let's say the children's Mass on Christmas Day, where everybody, you know, all the families are all there, and that's going to drive you into deep depression, then go to the early morning Mass where all the old folks are, or you know, be smart about it. Go quietly before the Lord and be present to him.
David, thanks very, very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. I just want to share with you Timothy on Facebook. Maybe thinks we shouldn't be talking about this, saying, I thought divorce was against Catholic doctrine. Does that give you any pause to talk about divorce and surviving it through the holidays?
Divorce is something that the Catholic Church recognizes is horrible, and it affects the family and the children and the whole culture. And she does not want divorce. God in Scripture says he hates divorce. We all know that. But the Catholic Church also understands that people get civilly divorced, and the Church can't stop people at this time. But she's here to help us through that. And she's here to remind us that if you've gone through a civil divorce, you're still married in the eyes of the Church, and we will help you with that. We will help you navigate those uncomfortable, difficult waters. And I don't want to bring up the whole annulment issue in this time today, but also that is a possibility. Some people had a permanent flaw from the beginning that couldn't be overcome. But regardless of your situation, the Church really is here to help.
Well, what about people who may feel scandalized by the fact that David, a divorced man, is talking about going to Mass and being with the Lord? Many people remain to this day confused about whether or not you can go to Mass if you're divorced.
Well, okay, this is a good time to remind everybody that this is what the church teaches, is that civil divorce, although it's horrible, may not be your fault, and you're not in a state of grave sin because of that. And so anybody that's free from serious sin, Catholic, receive Holy Communion, receive all the sacraments. But if you're in the state of serious sin, let's say you had the affair, or you were just a mean, horrible person who was very abusive, and you're the cause of the divorce, well, you need to get to confession. Even though
And
you
you can
haven't.
do that.
Yes.
You can do that. You haven't. There's not some sin that's just unforgivable here. I mean, you can go to confession and return to the sacraments, and as a divorced person.
And we know the church has always taught the only unforgivable sin is completely turning your back on God. And 99.9999% of us don't ever really do that. So yes, get yourself back to the Lord in confession and get a clean slate.
And especially our current Pope, maybe not especially, but certainly our current Pope has encouraged us as Catholics to not be in a false isolation, but to be where people actually are, that the church needs to be where people, and the fact is many, many, many families have suffered divorce or are suffering now divorce.
And that's why go to www.catholicsdivorce.com to get information on what the church teaches and free resources, and maybe where your parish is offering some support groups and whatnot.
Sandra in Hamburg, New York, you are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. When I first left my son's dad, I started going to a group, and it was actually right around Christmas time. It was 2 months before Christmas that I left, and I was that new mom that bought gifts and labeled them like from mom, and I also bought him gifts like from dad as well. And my son wasn't even a year old, but it was like you feel like you have to compensate for both parents. And one of the girls in our group was like, she used to always do that, but then the kid grew up thinking, oh, either mommy did A or daddy did A. So one of the things I kind of almost wanted to maybe just kind of bring up in case people are newer to this like I was, don't necessarily worry about being the hero and everything, just kind of worry about yourself and what you can do for your son or your daughter or whatnot. So that was an advice thing that I was hoping might help somebody out. As for me personally, I was hoping to get a little bit of advice about people that may invite themselves over to see a child that's in a situation like that, where you want them to be part of the holidays, but at the same time, too, you kind of need your own time to yourself with your family for healing or whatnot. So that was something I wanted to reach out and get some advice on for that.
Sandra, those are great comments, and I think whether you're divorced or not, we all need to know how to navigate with friends and relatives who want to impose themselves on our holiday schedule. And that's knowing that you're in charge and it's your life, and you can say no in a loving way. So I would say yes, if you want to spend Christmas by yourself this particular year with your children, that's great, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that. However, if it's somebody who loves you and is an important part of your life, make another time, like right after the week after Christmas and in between New Year's is great for catching up all those stray family members and friends that you couldn't see before the holidays, or, just do something around that time of year. But if you want that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to yourself, take it.
How does that strike you, Sandra?
A lot of people struggle with that because they feel it's selfish, and it is a day of thanks and family, so you kind of want to reach out and do it. But I'm thinking, I just kind of wanted to warn people that it's okay to say no, like you said, if it's polite. I kind of explained my reasoning. Luckily, she was okay. I could tell she was frustrated, but she was okay with it. And I did offer suggestions. So I'm hoping that over time it'll be good and everybody could come together. But I know a lot of people, when it's fresh, they are very nervous to do that, and they think it might harm the situation. But you do have to make sure you take care of yourself so you could,
Yeah.
No, that's very true. And it's not like you're going to be this quote-unquote selfish every year, So people out there, listen to what Sandra said. Don't invite yourselves over.
And also, we'll talk about this when we come back, but that gives us a clue about how to treat the divorced person if they're giving us all the signals that they would like to be alone during this period. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. Rose Sweet is our guest. We're talking divorce, kids, and the holidays. We'll have more of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Your questions, Catholic Answers, live.
Looking for a solid and dependable Catholic radio station in your area? One that's uplifting and authoritative? A trustworthy tool for the new evangelization? God may be calling you to a mission in Catholic radio. Find out how you can start a Catholic radio station where you live, powered by the truth of the Church and EWTN's dynamic radio programming.
Contact me, Jack Williams, at 205-795-5756 or jwilliams@EWTN.com.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the Church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Face it, it's tempting and easy to be a man of the world. Father Terence Ehrman has a challenge for you. Be a man of God instead. In his new book, Man of God, Father Ehrman draws on his experience counseling men who are struggling to live in the world but not be of the world. In a unique, easy-to-read format, he offers holy spiritual direction for all men who want to master themselves and be transformed from within. Order your copy of Man of God today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
All right, I like this music. We can keep this one. I like this. This is good comeback music. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and I do not want to neglect to remind you that we're giving away Jimmy Akin free. Not the man, but the talk. What the Reformation was all about. Jimmy Akin's most recent talk at our national conference. We're giving that an MP3 of that talk away free. You just go to Catholic.com/Radio Club to sign up, and then you're a member of the Radio Club, and you get our weekly newsletter. And when new MP3s, free MP3s come along, we send you those as well. So Radio Club is fun, and it's easy, and it doesn't cost you anything, and we try really hard not to bug you. Just go to Catholic.com/Radio Club. I don't know if that's really salesmanship when you're selling it as we try not to bug you. You're a Radio Club member?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's great.
Yeah. And did you get the free DVD, What the Reformation was all about? Or maybe you probably didn't know this, but if once you're a Radio Club member, you can have them for free.
I know.
You don't have to.
I know, but like I have all that stuff already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You were there at the conference.
Yeah.
I forgot. You were sitting right there when Jimmy gave this talk. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. I was gonna be like, what? You don't like Jimmy Akin? But no.
I love Jimmy Akin.
I know. Who doesn't? Well, I wonder. Let me think. Who doesn't? Probably Moriarty. Katie in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, listening on 88.5. You are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking my call. I am calling as a spouse of an adult child of divorce. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background. So my husband's parents just got divorced, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, but just prior leading up to that, his grandmother had passed away. And his family was very, very close, and his grandma was basically the glue that held everyone together. So shortly after that, his parents ended up getting a divorce, and I would honestly say since then, the family has basically fallen apart. So and for my husband, he's very, very sensitive. He's always, he's kind of the one that tries to hold things together for his family, but unfortunately, just the dynamics of everything that's at play makes it very challenging. So as a spouse, trying to, provide support, and I have my own frustrations with it all too, just like kind of some advice to navigate these murky waters during the holidays.
Katie, that's a great question. Your husband is carrying a cross, and I'm thinking about when Jesus was carrying his cross, there were two people who helped him that we know about, and that was Simon and Veronica. And Veronica kind of just dabbed his face, right? The kind of the gentle help. Simon did some heavy lifting to help. So why don't you go to your husband and ask him, honey, what do you need at this time of year? How are you feeling, and how can I be Simon or Veronica to you? How can I be gentle with you, or how can I help you with a heavy part of this cross? So engage him in the discussion, because I can't really tell you. He might want you to do nothing, but he might have something specific in mind. So he's the best one to ask. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to pray for you guys. It's horrible, isn't it?
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is. And it's honestly, I don't think it's any easier as a child or an adult. It's really, really challenging.
Katie, ask your husband to maybe bring a little present or a box and say, honey, here's a box. Let's think outside the box this year. Let's do something or consider something that we never would, that would be very pleasing to you, very freeing or whatever, and see what ensues in that conversation.
Okay, Katie?
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we will keep you in our prayers, Katie. Thanks very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number if you'd like to speak with Rose Sweet about kids, divorce, and the holidays. We would be happy to take your call. We go now to Paul in Pennsylvania listening on EWTN. Paul, you are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Yes, hi. My question is, what if you're the spouse? What if your spouse has primary custody of the children, and you normally take them to Mass every Sunday, but on Christmas, the spouse that has primary custody doesn't want you to take them to Mass so that they can sit at home and open up their presents?
Well, Paul, it's not fair, is it? But it's pretty clear. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God. If the other parent has legal primary custody, you can't force them to release the children, even for the best thing like going to Mass, and that's a cross for you to bear. But again, well, like we talked with the previous caller, think outside the box and find out, can you take them to Christmas Eve Mass or a later Mass, or usually Christmas decorations and baby Jesus in the creche is in front of the altar till after Christmas. So it's not the same, I know. But you're going to have to carry this cross, and this is what Scripture tells us. We have to actually thank God for that. We have to thank God for the horrible things we have to deal with in divorce, because through it, if we'll trust Him, He's going to bring something beautiful out of it. I don't know how that's going to work for you, but I believe it.
Paul, is that helpful to you?
Yes. I mean, usually it just Usually I do get them to Mass, but a lot of times there's arguing just to get them there. When every other Sunday, it's I get them every weekend, and there's not a problem. But it also happens with holy days of obligation, and then I kind of, especially my younger children, I think it makes them feel awkward then, because they have to go to Mass every Sunday, but then on holy days of obligation, their mother doesn't see that it's important. And it just, the older that they get, it seems, the more and more they get away without things. And it seems like even though some of them are kind of young now, that they're already falling away from the faith that they had.
And this is exactly part of the problem, the horrible problem of divorce. But sometimes even families who are civilly intact marriage-wise, they still have this division between the parents, and it's a horrible thing. The best thing and the only thing that you can do, it really is, do the right thing, call the children to do the right thing, and explain to them at age-appropriate levels why we go to Mass and why we have holy days of obligation and why it's so important, and help them see from you the love and joy and excitement that you have going, let's say, the Feast of Our Blessed Mother on January 1st. Why do we go to Mass? You know, she's beautiful. She loves us. She has all these graces for us, and we want to go and honor her. So I think talking to your kids about these things, not just making them do the actions, sometimes can help. Does that make sense, Paul?
Yes, absolutely.
So teach. Be a good teacher.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks very much for your call. 888-31-TRUTH, our number. Rose Sweet, our guest. We're talking the kids, holidays, and divorce. And we go now to Anonymous in Missouri. Anonymous, you are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking the call. My question has to do with epigenetics and the Book of Kings, where it says that future generations will be cursed. You know, basically, if we sin today, that future generations are cursed. And the epigenetics basically shows this this science to back this statement up. But it also shows that there's some actions that we could take ourselves to affect not only our future life. It's going to be harder for us, but that it'll also affect our future generations. And I was just wondering if the speaker could talk about, you know, the role of how we could, even though we may be cursed from the generations that have preceded us, and talk about maybe in the family whenever we're all together, or maybe throughout the year, but what are some of the sins of the past that we now find ourselves dealing with, some of the sins of the past, but then more importantly, how do we take those sins of the past and try to do something different, and, you know, maybe think about it and talk about it and say what could we do different, you know, looking at the generations that have passed.
All right, Anonymous, let's let Rose address that.
You know, that's a good point. And in reality, our whole faith and all of us are under the original curse. We've all been born with this curse. And the beautiful promise of God is that He's there, especially through His church, to help us overcome that curse. And by learning and educating, and instead of doing the same old thing that will earn hell for us, we can change what we're doing. We can create a better life. We can develop virtue. We can do that in ourselves and then pass it on to our children. So it is an intentional thing. Divorce is a curse, and it doesn't need to necessarily be passed on to next generations. But it takes intentionality, prayer, sacrifice, fasting, and educating yourself. And I wouldn't address this during the holidays, that's for sure, because that'll go over like a lead balloon. But you're so important. You're so right, Anonymous. This is very important that families do sit down and talk about, we're going to break this curse.
So say a little more, if you would, about why not to broach this at the holidays.
Well, there's an appropriate time and place to talk about everything. And the holidays, when the kids are all sitting around and grandma's there, you don't want to start talking about generational curses, you know. But I don't want to make fun of that, because that's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's just common sense. So it does need to be addressed. And so I'm glad the caller called in. We need to stop after the holidays. That's, you know, when you're getting a fresh new start. Go, okay, Lord, this new year, how can our family talk about this and do changes so that our children aren't divorced, you know, and those around us.
Anonymous, thank you for that call. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Rose Sweet on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
We're here for you. Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
I met my husband in my first year of college. We both came from strong Catholic families and wanted lots of children. After 3 years of marriage and still not pregnant, we felt our dream of a big family slipping away. My sister encouraged us to visit our local Catholic store and get a novena to St. Gerard. When we arrived, we were unsure about our need, but the staff was kind and helpful. Wow, what an incredible Catholic store. They encouraged us to pray and trust in God's providence. One worker told us stories of other couples, just like us, who were desperate to start a family. 4 years and 2 children later, we have been back to that incredible Catholic store for baby, baptism, and toddler gifts. God bless the staff at that incredible Catholic store. An incredible Catholic store in your area can be found at incrediblecatholicstore.com. The Incredible Catholic Store, transforming the world one soul at a time.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking book by apologist Trent Horn, that one book you can give to anyone as a starting point for helping them to find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
888-318-7884, our number if you would like to talk about kids, divorce, and the holidays with Rose Sweet. And Rose, you were telling me a little earlier about 3 little things that kind of help you when you went through divorce and the holidays.
You know, I'm always telling people, look to Jesus, and I have to do the same thing myself. And I always think, okay, this is what, if you don't know what to do at the holidays, should I go to the party? Should I do this? Should I do that? Here's what Jesus did. Sometimes he showed up. Sometimes he slipped away. And he actually hid. But most of the time, all the time, he sacrificed. So show up, slip away, sacrifice. Those 3 things that start with S kind of help me remember. Sometimes I may be just completely drained and I have to slip away, just like Jesus did. But that means I don't slip away to the mall. I slip away to go be with the Father like Jesus did, and to open myself up and be refilled with his love. And then sometimes I just show up, and even though I don't feel like it, I show up for a greater cause, for the good of the kids or the good of somebody else. But always, if you don't know what to do, go ahead and take the sacrifice. It's never wrong to err on that side.
Yeah, and that's striking, because it's so emotional, the holidays and all that, but the law of love doesn't change. We are called to carry our cross, and sometimes another family member is the wood of the cross, and sometimes a certain discussion that we know is going to come up, or
is the crown of thorns.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I'm just thinking, Jesus came into this world in a wooden manger. So he came in on wood and he left on wood. And the wood of the cross, in our faith, we can't get rid of that cross.
No, right. Right.
In fact, St. Rose of Lima said the only ladder whereby we get to heaven is the cross.
Yeah.
So the Christmas is going to have crosses.
Yep, indeed. Adriana in Los Angeles, California, listening on Relevant Radio. You are on with Rose Sweet. Adriana, did I say sweet right, or did that come out wrong? It sounded funny. Sorry,
yes,
Adriana.
Good, thank you. Thank you both for taking my call. My question, I guess, is we used to be very close with my family. In fact, I would joke with my husband that I got married, to be on my own, and we're always back at my parents. But unfortunately, last year, my sister and him had a discussion. It was a disagreement, and apparently my husband didn't like what she had to say. I was pregnant, so they didn't want to involve me. I ended up finding out anyway, and so now he refuses to go to my parents' house. Pretty much, just doesn't want to go because my sister will be there. If we happen to be somewhere where my sister is, he's kind of not nice in the sense that he just won't even address her. And it makes me sad and mad. And with the holidays approaching, I don't know if I should just say, well, let's just have Thanksgiving and Christmas at home, and I'll pick a different day to go with my family, even though I think that's unfair. But I don't want to fight with my husband and bring my own family down either, so I feel very torn.
Adriana, Christmas drama. It happens every year, doesn't it? In almost every family. I'm sorry that that's happening, but it's not unusual. And here are the principles that we know. We're supposed to leave our parents and cling to our spouse. And that means that your spouse has priority in your heart and your behaviors. So I would, if it were my husband, I would sit down one more time and say, honey, is there some way we can work it out this year? Is there a way that you can go and kind of just pretend she's not there or pray for? Can you do that? And if he says, I'll try, then great. If he says, nope, I'm not going to, then you have to accept that without nagging him. And then you go into your room and close the door and get on your knees and you pray for your husband. Remember, there is such power when a wife prays for her husband. So pray and sacrifice for him. And don't worry, because the holidays come every year. So if this one isn't perfect, it's going to be okay.
Adriana?
Yes, okay, I will do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate that call very much, Adriana. We've been married a long time now, and I had forgotten this, but we come into marriage with different experiences of birthdays, holidays, and we have to somehow create our own traditions, and that can sometimes be painful. Like that, oh, you always did it this way, and my family always did it this way, and my attitude was always clearly my family was right. I don't know, was that the right way to go about that, Rose?
It is. It's like somebody come into your closet and go, okay, you have to get rid of that blouse that you've loved for 25 years. You know, no, why?
Right.
But that's part of marriage, and it's actually part of our spiritual formation and helping us to let go of the things that we cling to too tightly for the greater good of another person.
We go now to Tom in San Antonio, Texas, listening on KJMA. Tom, you are on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Well, I basically wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Rose, for your sound advice that you give people. I went through a divorce 7 years ago, and my wife, she decided that the marriage was over and I had to leave. Mm-hmm. But my son, I was allowed to baptize him Catholic as my wife wasn't. And that was the bond that got both of us through that whole ordeal because we had our faith together. And even with the divorce, I still get him for Mass every day, every Sunday, regardless of whether it's my time to have him or not. And it was, we had already established the every other holiday thing. So when it happened, we didn't have to split at Christmas.
Wonderful.
And that was absolutely wonderful. And now, it's okay. Of course, it was harder when he was younger, and I had to put gifts from Santa. But now he's older and he knows there's no Santa, so it's no big deal. We can have Christmas 3 days before, 3 days
Wait,
after.
You just ruined it for every child listening.
Well, I think your family might be confused there, Tom, but...
Yeah, we might, but you know what? It works for us.
Yeah. No, there are some things we never say on the radio, even though the FCC allows it.
Let's put it this way. I don't have to have a separate roll of paper, of wrapping paper, that's from Anonymous.
So was it difficult for you, Tom, this idea that you had to, on Christmas, let go of your son completely sometimes? Just let him be with your wife?
It tore me to pieces. When you think for the first 6 years of his life, I was there every day, and to give up 1 second, it just crushed my heart.
But are you happy now that you did it?
Well, I don't believe in divorce. I never dreamed I'd be here.
No, I don't mean the divorce.
letting her have the full Christmas thing.
Well, I mean, there had to be some give and take, and that was, I had no choice in that matter. I have joint custody, so I knew I could get him, and I knew I'd get him every Sunday for church. So, like I said, we had already split up. 1 year it was with her family, 1 year it was with mine. So when it was with hers, he just went with hers.
Right.
And it seemed very natural, and it seemed very okay. It made it easy to accept.
Mm-hmm.
But to be away from your child on Christmas Day or any holiday or something like that, it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's hard even when you're older and they're grown up and they all can't come home for Christmas. You still miss them. Still wish they were 8 years old, you know.
I have that experience now with my young adult children.
Yeah.
Really? Wait, what? 888-318-7884, our number. Remember, next hour, open forum, pro-life open forum with Dr. George Delgado. This hour, we have Rose Sweet with us, and we're talking kids, divorce, and the holidays. We go now to, well, first of all, I should say thank you, Tom, for that call. I don't know if I thanked you for it. Rachel in Maryland, listening on EWTN. You're on with Rose Sweet. Your question, please.
Hi. Yes, thank you for taking my call. I have kind of a complicated situation. We have a close family member who 2 years ago, she left her marriage, and her husband very much wanted to work on the marriage. And when she left under the guise of just needing some space. And then 2 years later, 2 months later, she ended up moving in with her boyfriend, who was also married to a woman who had left him. And he has 2 kids, and it's been 2 years now, and they're both seeking divorces. And the sister-in-law actually resents his children and the money that he has to spend on them. And it makes the holidays very difficult, and all the situations where we have a family get-together very difficult because of how they got together, because of the adultery. It's very difficult to see them together, to be affectionate. And my husband and I we don't really know how to handle the situation. I mean, we've been kind of handling it for 2 years, but we don't really know what we should be doing. It almost feels like we're condoning it by being there all the time.
Yeah, you know, that is an element that you want to think about. I was in a similar situation, and the way I decided to handle it was I talked to the people privately outside of the family event. And I said, I know we're all going to be here and everybody's going to be going, yay, yay, this is all wonderful, but I need to tell you for my own conscience, I love you very much, but I can't stand what you've chosen to do. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. That doesn't mean I don't love you. And I didn't know how to say it any better. And the person was really polite and said thank you and never spoke to me again. But you know what? I never regretted that. And then I went to the family event and I had a good time. But it was like our Lord knew that I had done my best to say, I don't condone this, but I love you.
How do you feel about that, Rachel?
I actually like that approach a lot. I've been praying about this a lot. I've talked to other people, but I think this is the best approach that I've heard, and so I'm really glad I called in.
Yeah, you know, because then when you go to the party, that burden is off, man. Then you have a good time.
You can.
Yeah, you're right.
You can be at your ease a little more.
Exactly.
Yeah. And shunning. I think sometimes we have the idea that we do our Christian duty when we're shunning those who are living sinful lives and all that, and that is not a very Jesus-like strategy in most cases.
Well,
certainly in some cases.
Shunning should be an action to help the person move toward heaven, to move back to the right behavior, right? It shouldn't be shaming. So there's other ways of helping the person get back on track than shunning. Shunning usually is done like, I'm superior to you. And
Right. But do you get the feeling, as I do, as social mores have changed so much in the last 30, 40, 50 years, a Christian person, a Catholic person is not always sure what situation is it all right for me to go into and what is not.
that's what we said earlier. Look to Jesus. Sometimes he showed up, sometimes he slipped away, but he always sacrificed. Look to the catechism. The answers are in there.
Thanks so much for joining us. Rose Sweet, thank you very, very much for a fine hour.
That went so quickly.
RoseSweet.com is where people can find you. And I think you're going to be in Pennsylvania this week.
I have 10 tips to surviving the holidays on my website. It's under Sweet Talk, which is my blog. 10 tips.
You and your name.
I know.
RoseSweet.com. Was I right that you're going to be in Pennsylvania? Are you going?
Yeah.
Our Lady of Lourdes Parish?
I'm going to Philly this Saturday.
Nice. I was born there, you know.
You were?
Yep. But other good things come out of Philly. Don't worry.
Cheesesteak.
Oh, and have a pretzel. All right, we'll be right back after this with Dr. George Delgado, Pro-Life Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live when we come back.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Pro-Life Open Forum this hour with Dr. George Delgado. Maybe you have questions about the beginning or the ending of life, or questions about morally acceptable medical care, or you have someone in your life who's pro-choice and you'd like help addressing maybe points that they make to you. All of that is welcome this hour. It is a pro-life open forum. 888-318-7884. Our number, 888-318-7884. 884. Our guest this hour is Dr. George Delgado, Medical Director of Culture of Life Family Health Care. He's a board certified in family medicine and in hospice and palliative medicine. He also completed the certification program in healthcare ethics offered by the National Catholic Bioethics Center. Dr. Delgado, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Now, here in California, you, I don't know if you, I know you're connected with a lot, but I don't know if Culture of Life Healthcare was affected by the law that said if you're going to do pro-life, these pro-life pregnancy centers and that kind of thing, they would have to advertise as part of the services they offered for anyone who came in. They'd have to advertise for them where they could get an abortion. Did that affect you?
Well, it didn't affect us directly because we have a medical practice, but it certainly was looming large in the rearview mirror of many pregnancy resource centers in California, the so-called Reproductive Fact Act, which is really Reproductive Coercion Act is the way I would title it. It was a 2015 law that mandated that pro-life centers had to post signage to inform clients about state-funded abortions and birth control. And it even went so far as to mandate the size of the font, and it had to be big lettering, essentially turned these pregnancy resource centers into big advertisements for abortion clinics and contraception clinics, fundamentally violating the First Amendment rights of all of these pro-life centers.
Yeah, you start to wonder sometimes in California if the First Amendment still applies here. If you have any message other than state-sanctioned messages, there's this kind of bullying that comes out of our legislature, and is often signed by our governor. But a judge here in California appears to have taken seriously the First Amendment objections, and either put this law on hold, or what happened with that Riverside judge?
Well, fortunately, Superior Court Justice Gloria Trask in the more conservative county of Riverside County has put up an injunction to this. So everything, and so far really this law has only been enforced in Los Angeles County, but now it's putting a stop to everybody, so pro-lifers can have a breathing period where they can finally catch their breath. And it looks like this is going to go up to eventually to the Supreme Court. They're going to hear it, and once and for all, I think this law will be put to rest. And also the bullying, like you said, we have anti-bullying laws in schools. We really sometimes need anti-bullying laws so that these liberal state legislatures don't bully pro-lifers and people who disagree with them by limiting their free speech, limiting their free exercise of their fundamental faith beliefs and the right to really do good for people.
888-318-7884, our number if you'd like to talk with Dr. George Delgado about any issue having to do with pro-life, because it is a pro-life open forum today. But it seems that the game, the way it's played in California, is there's a general kind of caricature of the pro-life person as being anti-woman and a hateful person and possibly crazy enough to go do some violent act, despite the fact that that has virtually no relationship to reality when you meet and get to hang around with pro-life people. But having been so having been dismissed in that way, then the legislature treats itself to these heroic, and I say that with some sarcasm, remedies, like you have to say what we tell you to say. It's a bizarre state of affairs here.
It is, and it's not just a caricature. It's a cleverly designed strategy that not just in California but across the country to vilify and demonize pro-life people. so that they seem like they're, quote, and these are the words they use in political campaigns, outside of the mainstream, as if killing babies and victimizing pregnant women who are vulnerable is somehow in the mainstream. But they declare that what we're doing, trying to help these women in crisis and trying to save babies, is outside of the mainstream. What mainstream are they talking about? If you're talking about humanity and a civil society and the good of the natural law, then we are totally in the mainstream, and they are so far out of the mainstream that they're not even in the water. And so, but they're trying to make bad look good and good look bad. And they've been very successful at that, at turning public opinion and using terms that make it that, you know, applying euphemisms to what they're doing, and using words like Reproductive Fact Act, when again, like I said, it's really a coercion act. And so the time is now for us to really start to stand up and turn the tables on them and just speak the truth in a charitable and a calm way, so that people will finally realize that, hey, we're being duped by these people. They've acquired power, and now they're trying to push the envelope as far as they can. And eventually, when you try to push the envelope too far, like a rubber band, it snaps back and it rebounds, and those people will be found out. And the good people with common sense will finally realize that what's been going on, and hopefully that's starting to happen with this so-called Reproductive Fact Act as it goes up and hits the appeal process.
Indeed. So it's good reason to have hope. I mean, when you have judges willing to state the obvious, which is forcing other people to say your point of view because you're the government, is clearly a violation of the First Amendment. And then when you even get the United States Supreme Court, as of today, agreed to hear this case, that is we should take some hope in that.
We should, and like you pointed out when we were discussing this earlier, the fact that they agreed to take it so soon really implies that I think they're going to overturn it. And this will set up a nice precedent across the land. This will not just apply to California. It will not just apply to the Riverside County court ruling, but throughout the country. And so I'm confident it'll be a great victory for free speech, First Amendment rights, and just the right to provide services that are in agreement with your conscience. And this doesn't say that people can't have abortion clinics and can't have signs on their abortion clinics saying that Medi-Cal or Medicaid offers abortion services and contraceptive services. It doesn't take away their free speech rights at all. It just does not allow them to take away our First Amendment rights. So that's the key thing to keep in mind here. This really is not about so-called women's reproductive rights or any of that. This is about First Amendment rights, about the ability of people to spread the word that has a pro-life message and to offer pro-life services without being an advertisement for views that are fundamentally against their personal religious beliefs.
Again, 888-318-7884 is our number, 888-318-7884. It's pro-life open forum. Any question that you have having to do with the beginnings, the endings of life, or with medical ethics for any time in between, we're happy to take those calls with our eminently qualified guest, Dr. George Delgado, who is the director of the Culture of Life Family Health Care and is board certified in both it's family medicine and hospice and palliative care. I hate to be too California-centric today, but I have to say there was and I don't know if you saw it or not, but I want to ask you about it. The Los Angeles Times, the paper of record, I suppose, here in California, in late October published an op-ed about how it is not scientific to say that human life begins at fertilization, that the beginnings of human life cannot be established by scientists, that it's a process that goes on, I guess just goes on and on and on. Any response to that kind of quote-unquote science in a newspaper like the Los Angeles Times?
Well, that comment is totally unscientific, of course, because science has established without a shadow of a doubt that at the time of fertilization, and by fertilization we define that as when the sperm and the egg unite, that you have a unique genome there, a unique set of chromosomes, a unique set of genes that will never be replicated again, except in the rare event when there is a monozygotic twinning, identical twinning, but then you just simply have two people, and that from the get-go, that new organism, that new person, is really substantially the same as any other human person. The only difference is that where that person is in the developmental continuum. So just like a newborn baby is much different than a geriatric adult, they are both people and they're both members of the human species. They're just on a different place in the developmental continuum. And so they have everything in common except where they are developmentally in age. And so at the time of fertilization, you have, even at that very early time, when you have, even before the two nuclei, which is where the chromosomes reside in both cells, in the sperm and the egg, even before they are fully united, there are already scientific indicators that you can know which end will be the head and which end will be the bottom, the tail part of the person. At that very early stage, that has already been determined. So to say that we don't know when the human life begins is intellectually dishonest based on what we know from embryology and all of our current knowledge.
Well, it's when you learn basic embryology, even in high school, you learn how life begins, and it's not a confused thing. There's not like, well, we're really not sure when the life of a chimpanzee or a zebra begins. It's only when you're talking about a human being that all of a sudden, again, I'll put it in quotes, sneer quotes, the science becomes confused.
Right. And it's not that we really don't know when life begins. It's that these people, we really don't know where we want to give people the right to live.
Yeah, right.
That's what it really is. That's what they really should be saying.
But again, a sign of hope. The reason that the LA Times published this article was because the Department of Health and Human Services now says life beginning at conception. Those are the words of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, and many people see that as a political move or something like that. But it is just, in fact, a recognition of what scientists have known for well over 100 years. Is it not?
Exactly. It is a well-known fact. And then you have to be careful about the words used, too, these days, unfortunately, because conception we've traditionally known as being synonymous with fertilization when the egg and the sperm unite. But now there's a movement primarily in the OBGYN community and primarily among those who support abortion rights, and that is to change the definition of conception. Instead of conception being fertilization, they're saying that conception is at the time of implantation, when the human embryo, who by that time is 5 to 7 days old, implants into the uterus. And of course, you see that opens a 5 to 7 day window of abortifacient possibility that they can actually call contraceptive.
Yes, right, indeed. I recently someone showed me a quote from a textbook, an embryology textbook from the year 1883. In which it says conception occurs in the fallopian tubes. And I was like, 1883. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's 140 years or almost, really, that we've known where conception takes place. And it's only in this age of love for and devotion to abortion that we can introduce confusion that really hasn't been there for a very, very, very long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, we'll take a quick break. More with Dr. George Delgado when we come back. We've got folks on the line. If you would like to talk to Dr. Delgado about any issue having to do with the pro-life agenda, or I should say, or the pro-life understanding of things, whether it's at the beginning of life, the end of life, or any medical ethics having to do with life in all of its stages, give us a call, 888-318-7884. That's 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live right after this.
This is Bishop James Conley of the Diocese of Lincoln. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Hey everyone, guess what? Catholic Answers is kicking off the annual winter sale in their online shop with great discounts on all of the books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s that we carry. With great new releases on church history, scripture, Bible prophecy, and the saints, the shop at Catholic.com is once again your go-to place for solid Catholic resources with a store-wide discount to boot. Just enter the promo code WINTER at checkout in our newly redesigned shop, and you'll save 20% off your total purchase. That's right, 20% off of hundreds of great Catholic books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s from now until the end of the year. That's shop.catholic.com.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Pro-Life Open Forum today with Dr. George Delgado, and I tend to kind of monopolize him when I've got him, and that's unfair, but I enjoy talking with him. So I will now go to the phone lines and allow you to have your questions with Dr. Delgado. Any question having to do with human life and the ethics around the care for that human life, we welcome that today on Pro-Life Open Forum. 888-31-TRUTH is our number, and we go first to Stephen in Austin, Texas, watching on YouTube. Hi, Stephen. Your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi, it's nice to call in with you guys.
Thank you, Stephen.
My question is just about, I was talking with an atheist and we were kind of arguing about scripture and pro-life, and I was just having a little bit of trouble finding some passages in scripture that I could share with him that would be pro-life, because he seems to think that there are passages in scripture that would actually show that the life of a fetus is not as viable or as worth more than, say, a fully formed human being.
Yeah, actually, if you look at Scripture, first looking at Scripture as a whole is really a kind of a love letter amongst a family. It's really a family story. It's a story about generativity. When it comes right down to it, you have the love of the Father and the Son is so great that it begets the Holy Spirit. And we, as a human race, are a reflection of the Holy Trinity. Husband and wife, the great love then creates a new person who is a reflection of the Holy Spirit. So that's kind of the big picture view. But then when you narrow down, there are several scripture passages in the Bible, throughout the Bible, that support the pro-life view. Many in the New Testament, of course, but in the Old Testament, the most important is probably in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And it doesn't specify there that thou shalt not kill a born person. It just says thou shalt not kill. And then when you go to Genesis, from the get-go, from the very start of the love story, it says that God made us in His image. And so that, of course, implies that the preborn are made in His image. And then a little later in Genesis, He gives the message that we should be fertile and multiply. And so that's a command to us, that we are to be fertile and multiply. So that implies that multiplying, that having children is a good thing, that children are a blessing. Then later in Genesis, he hears Isaac praying because Rebekah was barren, and the Lord God heard Isaac's prayers and allowed Rebekah to conceive. Again, the connotation is that having children is a good thing. In Psalm 127, the psalmist writes that children are a gift from the Lord and that the fruit of the womb is a reward. So again, stating very specifically that the child in the womb is a reward, that it is something very good, that he or she is a blessing. And then, of course, the famous Psalm 139, where the psalmist writes that you knit me in my mother's womb. In other words, that the Lord had intimate knowledge of the psalmist and really of all of us as he knits us each in our mother's wombs, that he knows about us, he cares about us, and he loves us from the very time of conception. So I think all those are pretty powerful pro-life scripture passages that can support the pro-life view. And of course, in those biblical times, as opposed to Roman times when the Romans did practice abortion, it really wasn't something that came up, and so that's why abortion isn't necessarily specifically addressed in the Bible itself. But one of the early Christian writings called the Didache, which is the teaching of the apostles. So these are written records of what the 12 apostles actually taught. In there, because they were reacting to the Roman practice of both abortion and infanticide, there was a prohibition against those two in these writings of the very early apostles. So that again was responding to the Roman practices. So I think all of that clearly point to God's support and the Christian Church's support of the pro-life view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive thing or description. I also tried to bring up in my conversation with this person about how Jeremiah talks about God knowing him in the womb even before he created him, and how he knit him together.
Absolutely, yeah. Jeremiah chapter 1. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Stephen, thank you very, very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. Dr. George Delgado is our guest, and it is a pro-life open forum. Today we go now to Sarah in Mansfield, Ohio, listening on Annunciation Radio. Sarah, your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi. I guess my question is probably a little bit different than what the call screener put down, but I was curious if the guest, Dr. Delgado, if he had any insight as to what the medical community actually thinks as far as which position they take, and especially the students coming out of med school. I don't know if the professors are pushing one side versus the other, or how much freedom the new doctors have when talking about this with their patients.
Well, medical schools are much like universities throughout the country, and so they tend to support the thoughts and the beliefs of liberals, which tend to be pro-choice, and they tend to control and sort of bully, if you want to use the word bully again, those thoughts and the speech of conservatives. So when medical students finish medical school, I'd say that most of them are either pro-choice or they're kind of ambivalently pro-life, because this has been kind of drummed into them. I think once they get into practice, a lot of it depends on what area of the country where they are practicing, and I think there tends to be a little more of a shift to pro-life. So I think it all depends on what area of the country you are. So in a place like liberal parts of California, I think most of the doctors are probably going to be pro-choice or pro-abortion, while in maybe more conservative parts of Texas, they will tend to be more pro-life. And we've seen that in our abortion pill reversal program, where it's been easier to find pro-life doctors who want to be part of our network in the more conservative parts of the country. So I think, like anybody else, they are a product of their educational environment and also of the environment of where they live. So it's important, I think, for patients and other people who have access to them to really talk to them about pro-life and to tell them why they're pro-life, because really we all can influence physicians. It's not just physicians and professors at medical schools who can influence them. Everyday people can influence them, people in their communities, people in their churches, and I think it's very important because they do listen to them.
Sarah?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
I wonder, are there med schools, for example, that are teaching OBGYN doctors and whatnot, and they just refuse to teach abortion? They say, no, we're not going to be involved in that? Or is it just on
I haven't heard of any medical schools following that, but there are some pro-life OBGYN residencies where they do not teach how to do abortions. And so there are a few of those, and they're considered pro-life friendly residencies.
So does that end up just creating a greater split in the community of doctors, where some think this is just basic health care and others are like, no, this is clearly not basic health care. This is taking lives.
Yeah, well, it does create a split, but in reality, it's a necessary split. It's just like in the Gospels where Jesus said, I came to divide, not to unite. Because when there is error being taught, then it's our job to divide and to show the difference between the truth and the error, because you can't accept the truth unless the error has been pointed out to you.
Dr. George Delgado is our guest. Pro-Life Open Forum. We'll be right back with more here on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
This is Archbishop J. Michael Miller of Vancouver, Canada, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Face it, it's tempting and easy to be a man of the world. Father Terence Ehrman has a challenge for you. Be a man of God instead. In his new book, Man of God, Father Ehrman draws on his experience counseling men who are struggling to live in the world but not be of the world. In a unique, easy-to-read format, he offers holy spiritual direction for all men who want to master themselves and be transformed from within. Order your copy of Man of God today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Tim Staples, Trent Horn, Cy Kellett, Chris Check, Carlo Broussard. Our on-fire lineup of speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker for your event, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
What do you do on Sundays? You go to church? No, I golf. Ever make a hole in one? No. Well, why don't you pray a little bit? Pray. Yeah, pray. Oh, why I need to pray? I could give you 50 reasons.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live with our mellow music. Feeling so mellow now. And I don't want you to forget that. Oh, it got more exciting there. A little bit of drums, a little bit. Yeah, okay. That got better, Nick, as it went along. All books, CDs, DVDs, ebooks, tracks, MP3s are on sale at shop.catholic.com. The sale runs from now until the end of the year. It's a great time to get save money on everything we got, basically, and maybe buy something that you want to give somebody for Christmas. You just go to shop.catholic.com, use the promo code WINTER, WINTER, and you get 20% off everything until the last day of the year. Not sure what day that is, but you will get this deal until the ball falls, right? That glass ball they have in Times Square. When that falls, the sale's over. But as long as you get it in before that, 20% off everything. Our guest this hour is Dr. George Delgado. Our topic is Pro-Life Open Forum. And we go now to John in Ottawa, Ohio. John, you are on with Dr. George Delgado. Your question, please.
Yeah, hi, guys. I just need to say, my guess is that on the pro-life side, a majority of people, it wouldn't take like an anatomy professor at Dartmouth to figure out this is a little baby, you know? And so I guess my question for you guys is more on sort of an ideological construct. Why, in the midst of 60 million abortions at this point, why do you think the bishops and the priests have been so relatively muted as far as a prolific, dramatic response to something that makes Nazi Germany pale in comparison?
Well, that's a great question. People have asked that before, John, and I don't claim to know why bishops and priests do what they do and don't do what they don't do. What I can say is that the Catholic Church has been the strongest pro-life voice since the legalization of abortion. There's no doubt about that. The evangelical churches are now catching up to us, and that's fortunate. It's become a great ecumenical effort. But you're right, sometimes the hierarchy has not been out in front. It's been the people out in front. That's not always necessarily a bad thing, however, because remember, we are all put in our different places in society by God to try to affect society. And so although I agree that priests and bishops should be speaking up more about this, it's really our duty to do so also, and it's our duty to be on the streets praying in front of abortion centers, doing pro-life work as physicians or nurses or nurse practitioners or physician assistants, or being pro-life politicians or being pro-life business people. It's all of our jobs through all of this to take up our place in society and make a difference. But it's also our place to try to influence our priests and bishops to speak more about this from the pulpit and to pray more in front of abortion centers and to really take a stand. And I think sometimes they may feel that they're going out too much on a limb to do that. And I think if we, the flock, encourage them, we forge good relationships with them, we volunteer at our parishes so that they know they can rely on us and trust us, and then we make those requests. Hey, you know, Father, you give great homilies. Do you think you could talk a little bit more about pro-life every once in a while? And here are some great sample homilies from the Priests for Life website, and you can present those to your priest. Those kinds of things, I think, go a long way. Instead of just storming in and demanding that they preach more about pro-life, I think if we forge those relationships, develop the trust, and then in non-threatening ways make suggestions, that will really help. I think it's all of our jobs to do that, all of those sitting in the pews, to really try to positively influence our spiritual leaders.
John, thank you very, very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. We go now to Mary in Oklahoma. Mary, your question for Dr. George Delgado.
Yes, I am definitely pro-life, and I have had 2 tubal pregnancies. And I guess for myself and for the other women who have gone through this and had to end their children's life, even though they didn't want to, in order for them to live. Is there any words of wisdom or comfort that the church might have to offer to women in my circumstance?
Sure, Mary. First of all, I know that this is a very difficult situation for you and other women who have gone through this, but what I can say is that before I get into the kind of the details of the different treatments for tubal pregnancies, is that the church has authoritatively stated that in situations where the life of the child and the life of the mother are in danger, and if there's only one good treatment, and that treatment has 2 consequences. One is the good, and that is to save the life of the mother. The other is a bad consequence, and that is to end the life of the child. That since those 2 lives have equal value, that it is acceptable to perform the procedure to save the life of the mother, even though you foresee, but you do not want, the ending of the life of the child. So you have no reason to feel guilty of doing anything wrong. It was just a very difficult situation, and one that did not have a better solution, and one that you did not want to end the life of your child. It was just an effect of one action that had a very positive effect, and that was to save your life. So it's very important for you to realize that. And what I've just described is what we call the principle of double effect, and that's where the principle of double effect is properly applied. So it was actually a good thing to do, because you're still here for any other children you might have, or any other family members, or just for society in general, to be here, to be a positive figure, to live a holy life. And if you hadn't had that procedure, then both you and your child would have died. And that's not what God wanted. So that's the consolation I think you can find in it. That's very important. Now, just to go into it in a little more detail, because these things are always nuanced, there are 3 general treatments whenever there's a tubal pregnancy that is threatening the life of the mother. And one of them is probably the procedure you had, and that's called a salpingectomy, where the diseased portion of the tube is removed. And that, the principle of double effect perfectly applies there, like I just described it, because you're taking out a diseased portion of the tube, and in doing so you're saving the life of the mother, but unfortunately you're ending the life of the unborn baby that's stuck in the tube. The other is a procedure called a salpingostomy, or sometimes called tubal sparing surgery. Here's where a little cut is made, and the embryo and the placental tissue, which at that point is still called the chorion, is sort of scooped out, and the tube is preserved. Now, this has been hailed by medical doctors as being a good thing because it saves the tube. However, the Church has not made a final definitive ruling on this and whether this is ethically acceptable, but many pro-life ethicists who are conservative, including myself, feel that this procedure is not morally acceptable, because the direct action is against the baby. The direct action is not taking out the diseased portion of the tube, and so the principle of double effect does not apply. And then the third treatment would be giving a chemical poison called methotrexate, which is an abortifacient agent that is often used to treat cancer. And this is given, again, to spare the tube so that the tube does not have to be removed. What the methotrexate does is it attacks rapidly dividing cells. And, of course, the baby and its placental tissue is rapidly dividing. And so by attacking that, then it kills the unborn baby. And, again, myself and other Catholic conservative bioethicists feel that this is not an appropriate treatment because it is a direct attack on the unborn baby rather than treating the disease that the mother has with the foreseen but unwanted consequence of causing the end of the life of that unborn baby. Does all that make sense, Mary?
It does. Thank you very much. Very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Mary, we're very grateful for your call. I'm glad that gives you some consolation, because really, as you said, Doctor, you're not in a position to have a better outcome. There isn't a better outcome in that situation.
That's right.
888-318-7884, our number. It is a pro-life open forum today. If you have any questions about life at its beginnings, life at its, I don't know, I don't think anyone today has any questions about life at its endings, maybe about palliative care or hospice, or what to do when you hear the words brain death or organ donation and those kinds of things. All of those are welcome, as well as questions about the beginning of life or ethical questions having to do with medical care throughout life. Give us a call, 888-318-7884. If you're on the line, stay on the line. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with you. And you can share your question with Dr. George Delgado here on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Catholic Answers. Our success depends on you.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett from Catholic Answers Live, and as we head down the stretch toward the end of the year, Catholic Answers is kicking off the annual winter sale in their online shop with great discounts on all of the books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s we carry. With great new releases on church history, scripture, Bible prophecy, and the saints, the shop at Catholic.com is once again your go-to place for solid Catholic resources with a store-wide discount in addition. Just enter the promo code WINTER at checkout in our newly redesigned shop and you'll save 20% off your total purchase. That's right, 20% off hundreds of great Catholic books, DVDs, CDs, ebooks, and MP3s from now until the end of the year. That's shop.catholic.com.
Lila Rose says, Trent Horn really knows how to get people thinking and talking about abortion. Persuasive Pro-Life is an invaluable handbook for anyone who wants to become more skilled at defending the humanity of the preborn. Order your copy of Persuasive Pro-Life today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the online shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The Catholic Answers Minute. I'm Father Vincent Serpa. In Luke 17, Jesus said, "Things that cause sin will inevitably occur, but woe to the one through which they occur. It would be better for him if a millstone were put around his neck, and he be thrown into the sea, than for him to cause one of these little ones to sin." But he also said, "If your brother wrongs you 7 times a day and returns to you, saying, 'I'm sorry,' you should forgive him. If the one who has caused one of his little ones to sin says he's sorry, then the millstone will be set aside, and he'll be forgiven." God's love is greater than any evil. Often when a great sinner repents, he attains great holiness. St. Paul says, "Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more." We need grace to be faithful. We need grace even to want grace. I'm Father Vincent Serpa for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to our open forum, our pro-life open forum this hour on Catholic Answers Live. Any questions you have about life, from starting from conception, going to natural death, and what the ethics of the treatment of human beings are throughout all those years, 888-318-7884, at least in the optimum cases, all those years. 888-318-7884 is our number. Let's go to Terry in Tacoma, Washington, listening on Sacred Heart Radio. Terry, your question for Dr. George Delgado.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Dr. Delgado, I'm a nurse, works in hospice and palliative care, and I don't know if this is what I'm seeing as a trend, but for instance, in stage dementia, someone who's still eating ends up with elevated white blood cell, and they decide not to treat the infection or even try to figure out where the infection's coming from, kind of let it run its course. And I feel really uncomfortable with that. I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, those sorts of cases, there can be a big gray area. So, because when you don't know where the infection is, and certain patients with advanced dementia, what you have to ask yourself is, would the burdens of doing a workup, of doing an evaluation, be too much for that patient? And would the patient and the family prefer that instead of doing a lot of different tests that could have burdens, could cause discomfort, would it be better to either treat empirically, just treat and not know what you're treating, or not treat at all and just see what happens? And so, at least in principle, that is perfectly fine from an ethical standpoint, because there you're making the decision based on trying to balance the burden and benefit of a particular treatment. So there's really nothing wrong with that. And there's also, even if you have identified an infection, and let's say the infection would require intravenous antibiotics, and the burden of that would be too great. Maybe it would require going to the hospital, and that patient in the past, when he or she goes to the hospital, has become very delirious and has been very, very upset, and you don't want to put the patient through that. Then in those instances, it might be the appropriate decision to say, we're not going to treat this infection. We're just going to do our best to make the patient comfortable. So certainly, though, there are situations where I think you don't have to treat every condition when the burdens are too great. However, what I have seen, unfortunately, in some patients in hospice and palliative settings is that families will decide, we don't want to treat any infections, period, without knowing any specifics. And it sometimes I've detected kind of an underlying theme there, an underlying desire or motive, that the reason they don't want to treat infections is because they're hoping that this person dies sooner rather than later, because the patient is declared to be a burden. And so that's where we run afoul of good ethics and of good Christian morality, because people fundamentally are never burdens. Certainly we can be burdensome, and my wife might say that I'm a burden, but we, in our intrinsic value, we are not burdens. We are gifts from God, and so we have to see people as that, as gifts. And so we have to look at the disease as the burden, and sometimes the treatments are burdens, certainly. But that's how we have to look at it, is compare the disease to the treatment and see, is one burden greater than the other, but never look at the patient as a burden. We always have to look at the patient who has inherent dignity, and we have to treat that patient in a dignified fashion. And so sometimes treating a person in a dignified fashion means being very aggressive in treating infections and other diseases, but sometimes it means not being so aggressive and just treating symptoms. And that's really what good hospice and palliative medicine should be all about, is finding that balance and focusing on treating symptoms, not always going after and trying to modify or cure the disease when that kind of treatment would be too much of a burden.
Terry,
does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess what I'm seeing, or I feel like I'm seeing, is the providers who are counseling the families maybe pushing the agenda, because this is someone who can take something in my mouth, doesn't have to be sent to a hospital, still taking food, just not wanting to offer, let's treat the infection just in case it's causing symptoms, because he can't tell us. Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like I'm kind of going against the trends, and it's really frustrating.
Right, yeah. And I think I would try to just bring up the question, say, well, what if we did treat the infection, what burden would that provide to the patient? And if you kind of lay it out that way, make them think about it, because it sounds like they're not thinking about it. They're just automatically saying, well, we're not going to treat an infection. They often get into these routines and these patterns. So it's good for someone who's thinking about it like you to say, well, what would the burden be if we treated the infection with an oral antibiotic? And they might say, well, it might have this, such, and that side effect. And then you could say, well, sure, that can happen. What's the chance of that happening? And would the benefit outweigh the burden? And I think that's the way I would proceed in questioning, is so that you're really not threatening, you're just more exploring with them. And then you can find out where they're coming from. And sometimes it turns out that they just are stuck in certain thought patterns, and they're not thinking outside of their own boxes.
Terry, thank you very much for that call. 888-31-TRUTH is our number. We go now to John in Anonymousville, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite Radio. John, your question for Dr. George Delgado.
My question maybe just kind of a little bit maybe relevant to, but I was trying to understand that our Lord, we're told that was hidden in the Old Testament, revealed in the New Testament. Was there a change? Because if you look at the Old Testament, at least some of the readings from Exodus and certain parts of the Old Testament, God really didn't take any crap from nobody. He basically handed out punishment in an eye for an eye. Jesus, our Lord, comes on the scene, and it's a completely different ministry, philosophy, movement to love your neighbor. So was what gives? I mean, in terms of, because maybe if abortion was prevalent in the Old Testament, or at least in the old society. And as you said, the Roman Empire practiced it in their society. Did anything change in Christ's movement?
John, I wonder if that's an accurate depiction of the Hebrew people and the Hebrew Scriptures. It strikes me that they were quite different from the pagan societies around them. Certainly, particularly in child sacrifice, for example, that the Phoenician societies around them practiced child sacrifice, and that was absolutely forbidden to Jews. So I'm not sure that representation of what the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament is. For example, read the Minor Prophets, Micah, for example, and you'll find a very loving and caring and intimate God. I just wanted to say that before, just to make sure that I got that clear before we went to Dr. Delgado's answer, because it does relate to what you asked. I mean, certainly Christ is a revolution. I mean, the advent of Christ in the world is a profound change in every way. But we have to be careful to give a true account of what the Hebrew Scriptures are like and what the Jewish people are like. Go ahead, Doctor.
Right, yeah, you're absolutely right. So there are two questions here. One is the comparison with the Roman society, which is pretty easy because it was a pagan society and where they did practice infanticide and abortion. And there was a real paradigm shift with the onset of Christianity, is that the Roman pagan times, they considered children to be possessions, and they could do whatever they wanted with them. But then with the Christianization of Rome, it was a huge paradigm shift where now children were seen as people, as having inherent value and dignity. Now, as far as the Old Testament compared to the New Testament, well, God didn't give us all of Revelation at once. It was sort of a gradual process, and you see that from the start, where he took essentially pagan people and first introduced them to himself, and then to natural law principles in the Ten Commandments, and then further revelation leading up to Jesus. And in the Old Testament, it's true that God was sometimes a harsh God, but if you read carefully, he never commanded the death or killed anyone who was innocent. God did utilize the death penalty, if you will, capital punishment, and ordered, for example, the Israelites to slaughter the different people when they invaded those countries. But the reason why he did that was because those people were evil, they were pagan, and they would not follow him, and because he didn't want those practices to infect his chosen people. And so there's a good reason for that. You could say in a way that they had it coming because they didn't choose to follow the natural law. And so he never, ever committed or killed an innocent person, while abortion is the killing of an innocent person. So you have to make a very clear distinction that in no way was the Old Testament ever in any way in favor of abortion or of killing any innocent person. So that's important to keep in mind.
John, thank you very much for that call. I'm going to try to get one more call in before we go. Aaron in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio, KVSS. Could you state your question relatively quickly, because we are low on time now?
Yes, Doctor. I understand that it's okay to donate blood or donate organs, but my question is, are there any ethical problems with selling blood or selling your organs?
Well, with selling your blood, the ethical problems are not so great because the blood is regenerated, and so you're kind of made whole. And so getting some money for that to offset your costs and your inconvenience, really that doesn't have a big ethical problem. However, when you donate or when you sell an organ, really you're giving a part of yourself that is not going to be regenerated. So you are subjecting yourself to more significant health risks. And so whenever there's a profit motive introduced, then that's going to skew the thinking of a person who may, under desperate circumstances, donate an organ or sell an organ that he otherwise would not donate if he were not getting compensated. So that's the ethical problem with selling organs. And that also then can lead to coercion, where someone coerces you to sell the organ because you owe that person a debt. And it really can snowball. So that's why most good ethicists and really most societies that are civil will have a prohibition against selling organs. You see a similar thing, not just the selling of an organ, but a renting of an organ that is a problem, and that is with surrogate motherhood. And these mothers are induced to do this sometimes for maybe $30,000, $40,000. And many of the times these women have financial difficulties. They're trying to make ends meet, and they will do this in order to help pay their bills. And you can see that puts an undue pressure on them. Likewise, women are paid to have their eggs harvested, and they're subjected to powerful drugs that cause multiple ovulations that can put them at great healthcare risk. And so this has even been termed exploitation, because indeed they are being exploited. So that's why selling body parts and selling other things that could potentially harm you by having medical interventions really is not ethical.
Aaron, thank you for stating your questions so succinctly, and thank you, Dr. Delgado, for a great hour. Dr. Delgado is the medical director of the Culture of Life Family Healthcare. The website, Doctor?
It's colfs.org, and our other website is abortionpillreversal.com.
Dr. George Delgado, thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome. It's great being here.
Tomorrow, 2 hours of Open Forum with Tim Staples. Looking forward to being here with Tim Staples for those 2 hours. Join us then on Catholic Answers Live.